Thank you very much, and thanks for reminding me I'm short. Much better. Hi, my name is Henrique Couto, as he pronounced correctly, which is incredible to me. Very strange name to spell, worst name to read. I am indeed Henrique Couto. I'm trying to think of where to start, because number one, you kids are all making me feel real old, real quick, because 10 years ago, I was 16 years old. And literally the only thing that mattered to me was, it wasn't girls, shockingly enough, it was making movies. Just non-stop making movies. I had a little handy camcorder, and I would film my friends on the weekends. We'd make these little horror movies. We'd cover each other in corn syrup, and then I would hide in a dark room for a week and a half and edit it, and then I would walk around with a Trapper Keeper that had just DVD copies in it, and then a Trapper Keeper with schoolwork, which I could forget that, but I could not forget the Trapper Keeper with the DVDs in it. And I'd go around to anybody I could find in high school, of course in secret, because you're not supposed to sell things in school, even though I don't think they were talking about, backyard movies when they said no sales in school. But I would go to my friends and I would just say, see this DVD's $5, and our friend Brittany falls down a hill in this, covered in fake blood. And they'd be like, all right, here's my $5. And I'd be like, yes! And I'd come home with $28 and just feel like the most victory you could ever experience. And to this day, every victory I have kind of feels like that day I came home from school with $28 whole, which is strange because I charged $5 a DVD, so I don't know how that worked. Probably bought a candy bar or something. So I've been trying to figure out exactly where to start, because that was where I started. I started at community access when I was 12 years old. That's how I learned how to use cameras. Is anybody here who's made their movies, have any of you worked at a community access station? Have you done any volunteer work on television? Well, you should really think about it if you haven't. I don't know where everybody's based out of, but if you have a community access station in your area, literally you have a building full of cameras that for a nominal fee, which is probably waived because you're under 18, you can use and learn and abuse and no one will yell at you. So from there I learned how to operate cameras, and when I was 15 years old, my mother took a very big leap of faith, because you see, the reason I feel old today is because technology is getting so cheap. When I was 16 years old, a Macintosh computer you would edit on, how many people edit on Macintosh? At least one, that's fair. Well, the Macintosh you edit on probably costs like $1,300. The Macintosh I edited on when I was 16 years old cost $3,100. And it couldn't even edit high definition, because none of us really knew what high definition was yet. That's how old I am. I'm 26 years old, and I remember when I was growing up, these older people getting mad at me because I was frustrated with a camcorder I could plug into a computer instantly. And they had grown up with these tape decks and VCR stacked on top of each other. I don't know where I'm going with that, except that you guys are really fortunate, because you get to make movies now where you can get a camera for $500 and put different lenses on it and really bring your vision to life. Seriously, you guys just don't even know how good you got it. It's really incredible. Is everybody who's here incredibly thrilled that they're here, that they get to be here to watch their movie on the big screen? You can, by round of applause, are you really excited? Because that's the thing, believe it or not, you're children to me, and I don't know how to deal with children. I'm not supposed to swear or anything, take advantage of every opportunity you get, because that's what you need. You're young, a lot of people aren't going to take you seriously, but a lot of people are going to take you more seriously because you're young, because you're a prodigy, and you've got 3 more years of that. So I guess what I wanted to go into is I've made 5 feature films, 3 of which, that's 4, 3 of which have come out nationwide on DVD, home video, and to, mixed critical response. And from all of my hard work, I am able to make a solid part-time living off of making movies. That's pretty awesome, and it took me a very long time to get there. In my opinion, I'm 26 though, so it's It took me like 8 years to get to the point where it's part-time living. Sometimes it's almost a full-time living, but then it rears back. And I get to, sit and think of stories and beg people to be in these movies for cheap, because none of us have any money. I think that's a given. I don't think anybody here is working with anything more than I've had. Sorry, I'm kind of rambling. I'm very overwhelmed by all this young talent right in front of me. It's really cool. So I guess my point is that that's the romantic side. I get to make movies and I make enough money to kind of get by. The unromantic side is my check engine light has been on for 16 months. That's the sacrifice you're going to have to make. Filmmaking has changed a lot, and I don't know how many of you guys, what your goals are, but my goal has always been to make my own movies under my own terms, to be able to direct anything I want and do it without a boss breathing over my neck telling me how to do it better. And it used to be that was an obscene goal that you couldn't achieve. But now it's completely achievable. I'm sure everybody here knows about Kickstarter. Everybody here knows about Indiegogo and crowdfunding options like that. The way film has changed in the time since I was young to now is, it used to be you had to have a business, you had to have a company, or you had to have the backing of a company. Now what you have is your personality to sell. You have your social network. I mean, does everybody here use Facebook? I can't imagine you don't use Facebook. You make your movie, do you use Facebook? You don't promote your movie on Facebook? You have these incredible chops right here. You don't use Facebook? You're not big into Facebook. Fair enough, but I mean, the fact is that it's Facebook, Twitter, these are great ways to keep people excited, because as a director, if you're going to be an independent director, I guess this is really where I wanted to go with this. If you're going to be an independent director, you have to be a locomotive, okay? And your cast, your crew, your story, your movie, that is the trailer you're pulling. Without the cast and crew, nobody cares that the locomotive arrives on time, but without the locomotive, the cast and crew just sit still. You have to be a part showman, you have to be a part lovable, you have to make people want to invest in you. There's no more businesses. I'm trying to think of how to put this perfectly, but there are no more businesses. You can literally go on Facebook, make friends with 4,000 people, and nearly make a living making movies. You just have to convince them to spend the money. I'm not sure exactly how to go with that. Sorry, this is my first time really talking to just a crowd of people who want to hear a little bit about movies. So what I'd really rather do is answer questions from you guys, because my resume involves working professionally at a film studio for 3 years, working in distribution, working in marketing, working in post-production. I shot the 5 feature films. I was the director of photography, the editor, the director, and often the writer. So I'd love to just open it up to you guys and get some questions from you. That'd be a lot easier than me just kind of talking to a white wall. So does anybody have any questions they'd like to ask about making a part-time living being an independent filmmaker? Right back there?
What are the biggest obstacles you face in that role outside of the check engine light?
Well, the biggest obstacle you face as an independent artist is money, unfortunately. The check engine light is a part of the money. But you have to be able to get people excited, because you can't make the movies by yourself. Unless you're an animator, in which case you've defeated me. I can't touch the animators. But your biggest obstacle is going to be getting people excited to be a part of your movies, getting people to show up on time consistently, getting them to show up, when you're calling somebody at the last minute and saying, hey, we have a location for exactly 2 hours, can you be here? And them saying, oh, well, my girlfriend really wants me to be over here. And then you going, well, is there any way you can betray the love of your girlfriend for me? Please, I'm making a movie. Those are the kind of conversations I deal with pretty much consistently. I just made a movie, which none of you are old enough to see, called Babysitter Massacre. And we had a shoot scheduled at the last minute to film this scene that was very, very dangerous because it involved fire. And we only had a 2-hour window to use this fire safely, and we had to film our actors involved with the fire. We set up the entire shoot. We got everything ready to go. And then I realized as I'm flipping through the script at the last minute that it says right on one of the pages that the scene is after a girl has been punched in the nose. And we have a girl with no bruise, no scar, no nothing. So I had to call my makeup artist, who is a lovely woman who has 2 children and a husband, and say, "Can you be at my house in 45 minutes?" And she said, "Well, I mean, I'm right now I'm spending time with my children." And I said, "Well, it would be 45 minutes. Is there any way you can do it?" And through a series of, I wouldn't call them bribes so much as begging, I got her to show up and steal some time away from her children. So that's the biggest challenge, is to convince people that what is the most important thing in the world in your heart is the most important thing to them at the moment. If that answers your question. That might not have answered your question perfectly, but that's the biggest challenge, is getting people to care. Yes?
How do you get your film on CD and sell it all over the country?
Okay, how do I get a film put on DVD and get it sold all over the country? That's a big challenge. That's a good question. Right now, you're living in a time where you can self-distribute your movie and make a decent amount of money, which is something that didn't exist 20 years ago. If you have a movie that you think has a good marketable aspect to it, you can send it to distributors and hope and pray that they'll watch your movie and think it's great and decide that they want to foot the bill to manufacture thousands of copies and send them all over the country. But then there's also the potential that they'll never pay you. A lot of these distributors don't pay you, and they'll rip you off. See, now I'm starting to get really frank, and that's good, I guess. The best way to distribute your movie would be to do it yourself. For $300, you can make 100 copies of your movie on DVD with a professional case, shrink wrap, and the whole 9 yards, and you can sell those to your friends, your family, your relatives. You can sell them on the internet. That would be the best way as far as to get paid. If you just want exposure, then go with a distributor and hope for the best. They'll have a big itemized list of all the things they spent money on. They'll have a list of things such as DVD authoring, which literally means making a play button and an extras menu, etc. They'll charge you anywhere from $600 to $1,000 to $1,200 for that. They'll charge you for making your artwork. They'll charge you for the manufacture. They'll charge you for marketing costs, which could be one ad in Variety or one ad in Fangoria magazine or something like that. And then they'll charge you the replication fee, which could be $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000. And then once they make all of that money back, they'll start to pay you 15%. So I think that mainstream distribution, having a company manufacture your DVD and sell it all over the country, is kind of dying out. Because we have this incredible marketplace, the internet, just sitting right in front of us. So, I mean, if you have a movie that looks good and sounds good, you can send it to a distributor, you can send it to 10 distributors, and you might get an offer. And it can be a really good way to get your name out there. But you're not going to make a lot of money. So I hope that answered your question. Yes, sir?
What do you find personally more rewarding, the filming process or the editing process?
Rewarding, I would say that the editing process is the most rewarding because you literally have something when it's all done. When you've been filming your movie for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, if you're lucky to have that much time, you don't really feel much reward at the end of the day. You just feel exhausted. And you have this big pile of, I like to edit, but I don't. I view editing as like having a big pile of dirty dishes in your sink. And you just look at those dishes, and every day you don't do them, they seem to get a little bit bigger until eventually you have to sit down and wash every single dish and set it aside. That's what editing a movie is to me. So when you're in production, you're just kind of exhausted, and you're like, okay, what's next? Okay, what's next? And even when you're wrapped, you don't have anything to hold in your hands, You have a movie, you have an idea that's now a bunch of random pieces of footage. So I would say the most rewarding time is the moment the film is done being edited and the sound is complete. Once there's music laid in, because then your vision exists. So the most rewarding would definitely be the end of post-production, which is also in many ways my least favorite aspect, oddly enough. So definitely post-production is more rewarding. You, sir.
Is it important at all to go to a film school?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm biased because I have no legitimate education. I did not go to film school. I did not go to college. I basically didn't finish high school either. Hey, and I'm not telling you guys to go out there and drop out of high school unless that's what you really feel like you need to do. I was a kid who sat in school all day long and just wanted to write in my notebook. Story ideas, titles, ideas for posters, for movies. That's all I wanted to do. And when I wasn't writing about movies I wanted to make, I was writing about movies I liked. I would get so bored in a class, I would decide I was going to write my own review of Halloween for no reason. No one was going to read it. It was just for me. So I think that if you're the kind of person who appreciates sitting in a classroom, who appreciates receiving a lecture, then film school is probably a very good way for you to get your start. Film school certainly offers you a great opportunity networking-wise. You get to meet lots and lots of people who have the same goals and aspirations as you do. But I don't think it's 100% required. I mean, if your situation right now is you're sitting there and you don't have a lot of money, and you're like, do I take $80,000 in student loans to go to film school? I wouldn't do it. I would try to raise $10,000 and make a movie instead. Use YouTube to teach you. But that's just me. I mean, if you lean toward academia, if you get a scholarship, I don't think it's a waste of time. But I do think that it's not a necessity anymore. The technology is at a point now where literally, I mean, you can be sitting editing your movie and go, well, shoot, how do I make it fade to yellow and then fade black? And you can just Google that. How to make it fade to yellow and back on Adobe Premiere. Enter, and you'll find your answer. So, frankly, I think film school is a little bit of a fossil. Honestly, I don't think you need it. Hope that helped. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, sir.
So because you've been doing this for a while, as like technology and the landscape of independent film is changing, did you find it difficult to keep up at all, or are there things you struggle with? And what editing programs do you generally use now?
Beautiful question. Oh my gosh, dude, you kids don't know well, maybe you kind of do, the heartbreak of spending like $2,000 on a Canon GL2, and then 2 years later there's a high-def camera that costs half the price, and you're still shooting on standard definition. It is in many ways hard to keep up with the technology, with the changing of technology. I think that the best thing to do is to be mindful of it. You don't necessarily have to buy the newest camera every single year, but be aware of what the new cameras are, be aware of what the new editing softwares are, be aware of their advancements. That way, when you're ready to upgrade, you're making an informed decision. As far as editing programs, I have been editing on Final Cut Pro since I was 15 years old. So that's 11 years. And I stand by Final Cut Pro. Right now, they're having a lot of problems because, and this is super nerdy insider stuff, but Final Cut Pro X just came out about 8 months ago. Did I hear somebody say it's terrible? It's because it is. It is. It's iMovie, but with like 3 more features. I don't know what Final Cut's going to do. I do know what I'm going to do, which is I'm going to keep using Final Cut Pro 7 until I have to move to 2K or 4K editing, and then I'll have to go Adobe if they don't do something about it. Because Final Cut Pro X handles 2K and 4K video as well as high definition, but yes, Final Cut 7, I think it can edit 2K if it's in ProRes to get really inside for you. But that's that's about it. So the day that people deem it necessary for me to make movies on 2K and 4K formats, I'm just going to have to move to Adobe. And Adobe Premiere has gotten way better than it used to be. I remember when it was a joke. And now you could really cut a movie on Adobe Premiere. So are you a Final Cut person?
Yes, I am. And a GL2 person as well.
A GL2 person. When did you buy it? How old are you?
I'm 18.
You're 18? So when did you get a GL2?
I think, well, it's not mine, but it would have been 2 years ago, and I think it was $700.
Wow. I got it when it came out. Brand new for $2,100. What did you think of your GL2? Did you like it?
Yeah, I liked it a lot. I struggled with lighting a little bit, but it was good.
Good color reproduction, but it doesn't have that filmic gaze of 24p that everybody's clamoring for now. Well, I would say I feel your pain if you're a Final Cut editor who's seen X and experienced that. That is a sad day for video editors. So, but I think they're going to do something to kind of meet a middle ground. But if not, man, Adobe Premiere, go for it. That's what I think. Anybody else? I didn't know the questions could get so incredibly specific. So seriously, if you have a question about any of the aspects of post-production, pre-production, writing, anything, I will just start talking about code. Sir?
Yeah, this is a little off subject, but I was thinking of suggesting for next year that the museum consider having a silent movie competition. Many of the youngsters today have probably never seen a silent movie. And the music is much more important to a silent movie than to a spoken movie. And I just wonder if you feel that something like that has merit, or is it out of the scope of this competition?
That's a good question. I mean, that would be a good challenge. It would force people to get out of their wheelhouse a little bit. And it's always good to leave your comfort zone. I think that could yield some really interesting results. But I think it would also make the competition really specific to where people would have to make movies just for the competition. I don't believe that the movies that are screening here tonight were made strictly for the competition. They were young filmmakers who made movies and then had an opportunity to screen it, which I want to mention. You guys should really give a round of applause for all the people who have put this event together real quick, because please do that. Because when I was 16 years old, I never saw my movie on a big screen. Never had an opportunity to. I mean, there was no opportunity, unless you could pay, $200 to rent one. So, I mean, this is an incredible opportunity for you guys to sit back and watch your work on a big screen. And if you're anything like me, you'll have like this real sense of just fear and dread just kind of hanging low in your chest as it plays, hoping people laugh where they should laugh. So, it's an incredible opportunity regardless, but I think that could be very interesting. I mean, it would be interesting to challenge young filmmakers to try something new. I just don't know. I don't organize the event, so I don't know how they'd feel about that. But it would be interesting if anybody out there wants to make a silent movie and put it on YouTube. This guy really wants to see it, and I'd watch it too. So, thank you very much, sir.
Could you talk about how you funded your new movie? I think you mentioned something about Indiegogo.
Sure.
Kickstarter or something.
Absolutely. I just had a successful fundraiser on Indiegogo, which is similar to Kickstarter. I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with both of those crowdfunding sources. I'm making a new film right now. I've made mostly horror movies. I kind of gear away from that because this is a family-friendly event, and I don't want to talk too much about blood and guts, things like that. It's all fake, but it's still kind of upsetting. I decided this year that I wanted to be experimental, and I wanted to try making a kind of movie I'd never made before. So I decided to make a family movie about a talking bulldog. I had access to a really adorable bulldog that my mother owned, and a cast of people who really wanted to do it, and I just needed a little bit of money to do it. I didn't need a ton of money. I needed about $1,600 to get it all rolling. So I went on Indiegogo and launched a campaign and asked my friends, my fans, my supporters, hey, would you guys like to buy some perks? And we did it for 28 days, and we ended up, instead of raising $1,600, we raised $2,416. We went almost $1,000 over our goal. And so now when I make this movie, it's literally basically in the black the moment it's done. Like, there's no investors to pay back. All we have to do is treat our audience well, depending on what perks you offer. Like, for instance, if somebody donated $25 to my movie, they were guaranteed a DVD copy immediately, right in time for Christmas, no matter what. Stuff like that. It's an incredible opportunity for young filmmakers to experiment. The biggest problem that you're going to have if you go on a crowdfunding site is if you think that it's just free money, because it's not. You have to work really hard to raise money. If you're thinking right now, and I would hope some of you have been thinking, like, should I do a Kickstarter to raise money to make my short movie or to make my feature? If you're not planning on making at least 50% of that money from your aunts and your uncles and your mom and your dad and your older brother, then you're probably not going to be very successful. It's all about raising money from your social network and then showing people who may not know who you are how serious other people are about your work to get them interested. if somebody stumbles across your project on Kickstarter and sees that you're raising $1,000 to make a short film, and you have $700, then they immediately think, well, there must be something to this because he's already raised $700. And then they might look into it, watch your video, and go, okay, this guy's funny. I'll give him $20. I'm just in Iowa and I like movies. So it's an incredible opportunity to use crowdfunding. But I know I've had more than one friend go on Kickstarter and ask for $9,000 and raise $600. That's got to stink. So if you want to use crowdfunding, which I highly recommend you do, just make sure you have a strong social network, you have a lot of people who are interested and excited, and you have a lot of friends and family members will contribute. And then go for it. I mean, the worst case, if you're using Kickstarter, if you don't raise your money, you don't get anything. So, at least then there's no pressure to make the movie for $600. But it's definitely not free money, so just keep that in mind. But that was my first time doing crowdfunding, too. This would be interesting for you guys, I usually resort to either private investors or my own wallet or distributors. I just made a movie called, I mentioned earlier, Babysitter Massacre, which was made for the distribution company Alternative Cinema, which is a nationwide distributor of horror movies and genre fare. And they paid me a sum I cannot name because I'm under contract to make the movie. The deal was pretty sweet, but it would have been sweeter if I'd raised the money on Kickstarter because they're going to own the movie forever. I got paid a flat fee plus a small back-end percentage, which I also can't mention because of the contract. And once that 5 years of back end is over, I basically don't own the movie anymore. My goal is that by then I'll be 15 movies ahead, so I won't even notice. But going the traditional route of finding investors who you then owe money to, or going to a distributor who will tell you how to change your movie. Even if it's minor, they will tell you, take 2 minutes out of here, or take 3 minutes out of here, or I don't understand why this character is here. They're going to tell you those things, and you will have to make those changes because when it's not your money, it's not your movie. Those are all things to keep in mind, but you guys are so lucky because 10 years ago, that was one of the only options in town. It was that or beg your dentist to give you 10 grand, which they don't do anymore because all the dentists of the world have been burned by filmmakers. That's my personal opinion. I've never met a dentist alive who didn't invest 10 grand in a student film and never get it back. And they don't even want to talk about investing in movies now. So I guess my point is, look to crowdfunding as a great opportunity, but remember that you're going to have to earn that money. You got to come up with great perks. You got to come up with a great video to pitch it. You have to have an idea that you really think will resonate, and you have to sell yourself. That's the biggest aspect, is you have to make people want to support you. What's your name? Dredge? Drudge. It's a cool name. Nowadays, you're not going to try and get people to support your movie. You're going to try to get people to support Drudge, the director. That's going to be your goal. And with an outfit like that, I don't think you're far off from doing that. I'm not picking on you. I mean. So, but I hope that worked for you. No problem, man. Sir.
Over the past several years of putting this festival on, we've noticed that sound is often an issue for young filmmakers. And I was just wondering if you could comment on that and how to improve sound quality in film, especially when filming on location.
Sure.
And you've got wind blasting through or background noise.
I'd be happy to go into that because that's very important. A lot of people skip on the sound because sound is tedious and it is boring. There is nothing interesting about editing sound except when you're able to fix a problem. The only time sound editing is awesome is when you were able to remove that barking dog from the background and no one will ever know. That's the best success you're ever going to have as a sound editor, is that no one knows you edited the sound. When you're making a movie, if you want to have a sound mix, okay, let's say you're making a film that you want to sell nationwide and then overseas. Your sound mix becomes so much more important than you can ever imagine the moment you decide you want to enter the global market. Because when you deliver your movie for international distribution, you have to deliver what's called an M&E version. Music and effects. Nothing else. And what the M&E version means is that they want a version of your film that has every single sound that is not people talking. Every door opening, every footstep, every cigarette lighter, everything needs to be in that sound mix except for people talking. That way they can dub them speaking Cantonese or something. I mean, depending on what they want to do, for all I care, you know. But so you have to have a perfect sound mix, and the way you would usually do that is you take your sound from location and you listen to it, and if it's awful, you just scrap it and re-record it. That would be in a perfect world. Of course, a lot of us don't have the access to our actors or don't have the time to do that. The other way is that you would isolate from the beginning of your audio editing process, you isolate every single word somebody says. So if somebody says, hey, you set your in point right at heh, and you set your out point right at eh, right at the end, and you have hey be its own sound completely separate of everything else. And then you lay in the sound of the neighborhood or the car driving or whatever is motivated by what you're seeing, you lay that in separate. That way, when it comes time to deliver your M&E version to your distributor, you can just remove all of the English language talking. It takes weeks, and it is not fun. But it's very important. So if you've ever waited to the last minute, which I do all the time, to do your sound mix, try and put in a little bit more effort, and remember that what people hear has a big effect on what they see. If you have this buddy, like I know a lot of people have this buddy who's really into computer generated effects, he can make your CGI for you. If you have this amazing transformation scene that your friend made, but it doesn't make much of a sound, no one's going to be interested. So the big thing I suggest is edit your movie, get your dialogue just right, and don't go crazy with this noise reduction. You all must know about noise reduction. It starts to slowly make your audio sound like it's underwater. Everybody hates it. Try to do it as little as possible. Sorry. Step away from your edit for like a week and then watch it again and try to visualize the sound. Watch everything you're seeing. If a character's walking down the street, think, do I need to hear that character walking down the street? Does it work for the image that I'm trying to sell to the audience? Or think, should there be the sound of the neighborhood in the background? Because they're in this suburban house, and I can get these sounds of dogs barking and kids playing. All you need is one of these. This thing costs like $100. And you can literally go out into somebody's backyard and get like 30 seconds, and then you're golden. You're golden. Unless, of course, a car drives by or something, in which case it could still take you 20 minutes and be very frustrating. But if you didn't want to be frustrated, you wouldn't make movies. It's about time you guys laugh, man. But sound is incredibly important, and I highly recommend the great thing now is if you edit on Final Cut or Adobe or even Avid. I'm not a big fan of Avid, but if you edit on any of those programs, you already have a lot of really powerful audio editing tools at your disposal. And they all work kind of like your video editing softwares work. So sit down with it and really work hard. I would recommend, if you want to experiment, make a 5-minute movie and then give it a perfect Hollywood sound mix. Isolate every single piece of dialogue, make it completely separate from every piece of ambient noise and music, just to see how hard it is and what it's like. It's a great discipline to get. That's a big thing that I learned that's really valuable. I worked at a distribution company, and I would help them prep their movies for release. So they would hand me some movie, whether I liked it or not. They would hand me this movie and say, this needs to be ready to come out on DVD everywhere in 2 months. And then I'd have to go, okay, well, I'm going to encode this to DVD. I've got to, line up the audio commentary track. I've got to do all of these things. And you would constantly see other filmmakers' mistakes. You would see, where their aspect ratio was wrong, or where something was distorted, or where it was too dark. And from there, you can become a dream to distributors because you don't make any of those mistakes. Because you say, okay, well, when the movie's done, you'll be ready to put it in stores because I'm already a DVD author. I'm already a sound mixer. So, here you go. It's perfect. It's done. And they'll love you because the less they have to talk on the phone with you, the better. That's really the way they see it. If they release, 27 movies a year, that's an odd number. I don't know why I picked that. But yeah, so sound is incredibly important, and that's a very, very good question. Anybody else have a question? Sir?
I think you were exactly right about Final Cut and Premiere both, and what you said about sound. But what I'm curious about is, what cameras are you shooting on, or what do you like right now with the camera?
That's a good question. I'm guessing that a vast majority of you guys use DSLRs, right? All right, good. Some nodding heads. That's good. DSLRs are incredible. They give you so many options. I shot my last 2 features on DSLR. I shot them on the cheapest DSLR I could get my hands on that had a screen that articulates. Because I was the director of photography on this movie called Church of the Eyes that used a Canon 7D. And I was like, wow, this camera's so cool. Everybody on YouTube's talking about it. And then I realized that every second my face has to be perfectly to the back of it in order to see what it's capturing, because we didn't have the money for an external monitor or anything. So when I went out to buy my own, I bought a Canon T3i, the 600D. Brand new, it was $890. For full high quality HD, $890. That's so cheap. I was floored. I shot 2 entire features with it and some music videos, local music videos, commercials, stuff like that, with this little tiny camera that every single client that hired me didn't like until they saw the footage. Because they would be like, oh, well, we're paying you good money, and you'd walk in with this little photo camera. And they'd be like, what's that? Is that for behind the scenes? No, this is filming your commercial. You don't like it? Pay more. But I didn't say that, but I wished I could have. But DSLRs are amazing because you can change the lenses. That alone is a humongous advantage over video cameras. I mean, this gentleman knows he shot on the GL2, which is a great camcorder, but it looks like a camcorder compared to DSLR footage. I've shot on major, huge HD cam cameras. I've shot on DSLRs. I just recently purchased one of the Sony NEX cameras. They're interchangeable, but they're more like camcorders and less like photography cameras, and I really like it. It was insanely expensive, worth more than my car, but I really liked it. I think that if you're learning, DSLR is just the way to go. The price is right, the quality is right, and sound is the only nightmare. Raise your hand if you shot on DSLR. How do you feel about the sound? Did you use an external recorder to get your sound, or did you use the onboard sound? External? Like a Zoom, like one of these or something like that? With a mic in it, plugged into it? How did you feel about syncing the audio up in post? Wasn't it a nightmare? Yeah, and that is the terrible part. That's why I recently moved past it. Because I could afford to, though. That's the big thing is, do what you can afford now. Don't go into too much debt. But shooting on a DSLR, I had a sound man literally holding this, taped to a boom pole, which was connected to a microphone worth 3 times this little cruddy recorder. And I never knew what the sound they were getting was because we were in too much of a hurry for me to have headphones and him have headphones. So it was literally like magic at the end of the day. Oh, cool, we do have sound. All right, cool. Because, your sound guy, who is not a professional sound guy, he's your friend, Tim, who's holding the boom mic. You look at Tim and be like, Tim, sound rolling? And you'd be like, Christ, I have no clue if the sound is recording. I remember, I'd hand the microphone to somebody I just sort of knew, and I would literally be like, oh, let me see that, and I would look and go, okay, it's counting, okay, cool, because I don't want to have to redub this. But what's really terrible is, did you sync it, yourself, or did you use a program? Oh, that's rough to sync it yourself. See, I used Dual Eyes, which I'm sure you've probably heard about. Dual Eyes or Plural Eyes. Which is a program that uses the waveform of your DSLR to match up the waveform. It is not perfect. And nothing is more frustrating than when you pump in Plural Eyes and you're shooting a feature movie. So say you have 740 clips to sync. And you're like, wow, it's syncing them all. Whoa, okay, well, except for 17 of them. So then you take those 17 and you put them into Plural Eyes separate, and then you're like, oh, cool, it sank 7 more of them. Why are these 10 not syncing? And you'll never know why. You will never know why. It just won't ever sync. You'll have to do those by hand, no matter what. So it is a big challenge and a big pain in the butt. But do you feel like dealing with all the syncing of sound was worth it for the picture quality you got?
Eventually, yeah.
Like 3 weeks later, you were able to look back and laugh?
After you're over all the stress.
Yeah. What camera did you shoot on?
T4i.
T4i? You like it?
Yeah,
Good.
I'm still kind of new with it, but I like it.
Fair enough. See, it's so cool because you can afford these cameras. You know, like, and you didn't have to. How did? This may be personal, but what did you have to do to get that? Like, did you work a job, or did you go to the International Bank of Mom, or?
It's a graduation present.
Nice. See, my friend, a friend of mine, he got remember the DVX 100, the 24p camera that now no one would even think to use because it looks like video. I remember my friend Justin got, or wait, no, it was my friend Zane. They're like the same person to me. He got a graduation present, which was a DVX 100A. $4,000 graduation present. Made me think I should have graduated. But I feel your pain about mixing audio. My last feature was the last one I did on DSLR. And I had to manually sync like about 18 clips. So, and that's nothing compared to what I'm sure you had to do. So sorry for your pain, but you saved a lot of money. So, but DSLR, anybody else want to share their feelings about DSLR? Like any quirks or troubles? Focus is really rough, isn't it? To maintain your focus? You have anything to say about DSLRs?
I saw a camcorder, and it actually has, that one up there, it actually has in place 4 external mics on it. So
Nice.
you can do everything with like a boom. but
And
it's
hear it
not
right then and there.
synced, Yeah.
Yeah.
And we'd always, every single scene, we'd make sure to have someone go up there and do a sync mark so you can make sure, yes, these two are exactly lined up. So you definitely knew for sure.
What kind of camcorder is that?
It's an NX HXR 30U. It's a Sony. And we shot our movie in 24 for multiple reasons, actually, if you want to hear.
Oh, yeah, please, share.
So one thing was like, I didn't want to shoot 30 because I don't want to be that guy. And I didn't want to shoot 60 because I didn't want to rotoscope scenes at that. So I was doing some math on the records on it. And it would record at 28 megabits per second for 60p. Or if you shoot at 24p, it shoots at 24 megabits per second. So each frame was less compressed. So I decided, let's use that for you get that dreamy movie look. You feel that, oh, he's sort of movie professional. He's using 24 to be that guy. And then you're also getting less compression on each of your frames. So,
That's fair. So it shoots AVC HD?
yeah.
Nice, yeah.
I kind of don't like that. I wish it would shoot like HD 64 native or some weird thing.
Well, we all want that.
But I'll stick with
You can get that for $1,000. That's the nightmare. See, that's the tricky thing is you there's always a feature you want from your equipment. And it's like, well, you can have that for another $1,000. We'll get you that for $1,000. It's always $1,000 too. It's never like, man, my camera's audio is horrible. Oh, well, we have a box. It's $8 that'll fix that. Unless you had to build it yourself and solder it. See this scar? Yeah. Don't solder your own equipment if you can avoid it. And that's a good example though, because camcorders, they're meant for this, as opposed to DSLRs, which we're jerry-rigging and fooling them into making movies for us, because they happen to look more cinematic because of all those lenses.
Well, I mean, that one does have a really nice lens setup on it. It's a much different system. It's more like a DSLR on its lens.
What's its f-stop of the lens?
What is it? It's range of-
Is it 3.5 to 4.6? Wow, I know things. Isn't that weird?
I think it might be lower.
Might be lower? Well, is it a zoom lens?
Yeah.
It's probably not lower than 3.4.
Yeah, I'm saying I have to look at it. So I can't remember now.
Because you won't get that shallow, dreamy film look at 3.4. That's why people love their DSLRs, because you can buy that 50 millimeter lens for $100, and it's f1.8, and everything is really dreamy, and you can shoot under low light. And good luck if you hope that everything's in focus. So does anybody have an experience with that where they had no clue if they were in focus? Yeah. Did you just pray? That's.
I was just trying to divide every single action.
You know what my secret is to getting perfect focus on your DSLR? I'd love to tell you. Do this. I am so nearsighted right now, you are all just a big red blob. And if I hold the DSLR camera this far away from my face, I can tell the sharpness of everything. It's not advice you can all use, but it's what I do. And I look stupid doing it. Just a heads up. So, any other questions? You, sir.
Is there anybody in Hollywood specifically that you look up to?
That's a very good question. In Hollywood, it's really tricky because my my influences are all either really obvious or weird. Like, I really love, Quentin Tarantino, like, you have to love him. You have to, yeah, see, you know, because he's great and his movies are cool and he seems cool and he's a fan. You can tell you could sit down with him at Burger King and you could probably talk about the same movies. So I've always liked Quentin Tarantino, but I've been a real big fan of John Landis. John Landis, who did American Werewolf in London, but he also did not Kentucky Fried Movie. Was it Kentucky Fried Movie he did? Like, I looked at John because I know he'd know. He did, Animal House and these scary horror movies and Blues Brothers, and so he would like run the gamut, and that's what I really love. But my biggest hero is one that people always laugh about because it's a guy named Jim Wynorski. Hear them chuckle? It's because they know. Jim Wynorski has directed, I think at this point, 95 movies, maybe more. He makes 3 or 4 a year, and that doesn't mean they're all good, but he makes them, and he cares very much about the movies he makes. And I've kind of always looked up to him because I've always felt like no matter how many films I make, I'm not making enough. I've made 5 feature films at 26 years old, and a lot of people they don't literally hate me, but they like hate you. They're like, oh, I hate you. Like, I've made 2, or I've made 1, or I want to make 1. And my reply is always, it should be 8. Like, I should be at 8 by now, but I slept in too many times, like, I'm just too lazy. So my biggest influence would be Jim Wynorski, because yet again, another guy who he's made horror movies, monster movies, science fiction movies, family movies, comedies, everything. I love directors that try every single genre they can get their hands on. I think that that's really impressive and interesting because, that's what it's all about. At the end of the day, when you're young, you get really obsessed with the tech elements. You're really thinking about the camera. You're thinking about the sound. You're thinking about all these things. But the hope is that you just kind of slowly catch up to yourself artistically. By the time you're comfortable with your equipment, by the time you're comfortable with the camera, at that moment, all of a sudden you realize, oh wait, I can judge a performance. Because that's the secret to directing, is you have to be able to judge a performance. You have to know when you have what you need and when you don't. And that's one of the reasons I really love working on a low budget. Because you sit down and you go, okay, we have this location for one night. We have these actors for one night. We have to shoot 27 pages tonight. Good thing I know what I need and what I don't need. You can pick and choose. Somebody could say this could do their line, and you're like, that was a little flat, but this other line's way more important. Let's do 2 takes on that one. Move on, move the camera, move the lights. Come on, people. Come on. Henrique, are you ready? I'm like lunch meat. I'm always ready. Those are the kind of things you hear on set. But I don't even know what brought me to that point. Jim Wynorski, he's my biggest influence, and if you have a chance, watch one of his movies. You're 18, you can watch most of them. Chopping Mall, Sorority House Massacre 2, Piranaconda, he just made that last year for Sci-Fi Channel. It's not as bad as you think. Anyway, any other questions? I'd love to take. See, now I feel like we got a groove going. Yes, sir.
What do you learn about filmmaking? Do you take a class online or just by books? Do you have any recommendations?
I do. I think that if there's one thing you should read books about, it's screenwriting. How many people here write their own scripts? I would guess most. See, I feel like if you didn't, you'd be like, oh, we just have that friend who sits in a dark room all the time. He writes them. No one makes eye contact with him. I highly recommend screenwriting books because the more you learn about story structure, the better you'll be as a filmmaker and as a writer. Once you know a lot about story structure, if you're handed a script that you don't like as a director, you can fix it without enraging your writer. Hopefully. Writers are easy to enrage, right, John? Screenwriting books. There's this guy named Sid Field, S-Y-D Field, Sid Field. He has some really good screenwriting books, but I think the best screenwriting book I could suggest is one that's really funny and short. It's called Writing Films for Fun and Profit, but fun is crossed out. It's written by 2 comedians who have written some really successful movies like Herbie Fully Loaded. They're successful, not good, but they're very successful, like Herbie Fully Loaded or Night at the Museum, stuff like that. And they talk about their methods and how they how they develop the story, how they make the movie have a pace that keeps people interested, stuff like that. So any book about writing screenplays, read it. It's worth reading. So, one more question? Yes.
Do you write your own scripts, and if you do, how do you deal with writer's block?
Beautiful. Thank you for that. I've written the majority of my screenplays. And the big benefit to writing for yourself is that you can guarantee you don't have to cut a bunch of junk out. You know, when you have your friend write, they're like, and then the car catches on fire, and you have to go, where am I going to get a car on fire? I told you, I have my mom's house, I have a Dodge station wagon, and I have a dog that we can make look like he's talking. That's what I have, and you have a burning car. Thank you. You know, those are the arguments you get into when other people write for you. Meanwhile, when you sit down, you can sit there and think like, do I want to have a party scene here? Could I, borrow my friend's living room and fill it with people? Things like that. So I do write most of my own scripts, mainly for time's sake. But writer's block is the worst. As I speak to you all right now, I'm in the middle of writing A Bulldog for Christmas, which shoots in 2.5 weeks. I'm still writing it. I think when you get writer's block, the best thing you can do is step away for a minute and try to freshen your mind up. Either, go for a walk, talk to a good friend, watch a movie you really love. I don't know about you guys, but I've seen Terminator 2 150 times. You can applaud Terminator 2, it's not going to be offensive to me. And if I need to clear my brain, I'll put on Terminator 2 and I can recite the whole movie as it happens. On August 29th, 1997, you're going to need 2 million sunblock. You're going to have a real bad day, get it? I can just go through the whole thing. And that's a really good way to clear your mind, though. If you have that movie, especially if it was a movie from when you were a kid that you watched over and over and over and over, pop that in and see if it maybe inspires you. But the big thing is deadlines will help you more than anything in the world. I can promise you that. If you tell yourself, I need to write a 90-page screenplay, and it just needs to be done whenever, it's going to take a really long time. But if you, especially if you put it on other people, like you say, I need to write a screenplay, and my friend needs to read it in 3 months. Make sure it's an unforgiving friend. And you force yourself to deliver, even if it's not perfect, because the first draft isn't going to be perfect. But once you have 90 pages of stuff, or 10 pages, whatever you're writing, once you have all those pages of stuff, even if it's not perfect, it's so much easier to rewrite than to write to start. I'm working on this crime movie that I had my roommate write. He's a pretty decent writer. And I didn't love his script entirely, but it was worth the small amount of money I paid him to not have to fill 90 pages, because now I can just go through and, nope, dumb, here's where the joke goes, dumb. Not that his script isn't good, his script is good, but once you fill those pages, fixing them is a lot easier. But I can't recommend enough a deadline. Especially when you're younger, there isn't a need for deadlines as much. Force yourself to have a deadline and make it happen. That's why I'm confident I will finish writing Bulldog for Christmas before the 2 weeks that we have to start filming is. Otherwise, we're going to have to film on partial script, and I've done that before too. So I hope that helped a little bit. Other side notes, showers, seriously, they really do help. That's not my idea. That's a guy named Dan O'Bannon who wrote Alien and Return of the Living Dead and a few other films. He's a really talented guy, passed away a little while ago. He would always say, take a shower and just let the water rush over your head and think about your ideas. But most importantly, just don't give up. And write detailed outlines. If you don't already, if you start with just a blank page and pound away, don't do that anymore. I did that until I was 23 years old, like a moron, just trying to write my script from blank page all the way to finish. You hit so many snags. Sit down with a piece of paper and write out scene 1, and then write 3 or 4 sentences that describe what should happen in scene 1. If it takes more sentences, that's fine. If it takes less, great. But just, Susie is in her bedroom. She's not very happy. Tony comes in. She's not very happy with Tony either. Tony leaves. Even that simple. And then you can literally, when you're done, you have 80 scenes. You can say, it'd be better if this was over here and over here and over here. And then when you start writing the script, you fill in all the details. And that way you always know where you're going and where your story's going. It'll kind of give you a little bit more of a rhythm to go with. So that's probably my best advice for writing at all, is write a really detailed outline first. because I sincerely didn't do that until my 4th feature screenplay, and it made writing a screenplay go from taking 4 months to taking like a month. It's a lot quicker. And that'll be where you have all your writer's block too. It'll mainly be while you're trying to figure out where the characters are going and where they're headed and what locations you'll need. So, but I hope that helped, guys. Sorry I'm a bit of a rambler. I tried really hard. I'm looking forward to watching your guys' work tonight, and I think you should all give yourselves a round of applause because this is really cool. So thank you all so much for listening, and I look forward to watching what you made.
Thank you, Henrique.